Welcome to Cinemophile, where we bring you the best in independent, documentary, and foreign films, and we talk to the people who made them. I'm your host, Mike Caspar, and you can find out more about the program by going to cinemophilepod.com. In 1982, 6 rural communities across the United States were notified that all of the nation's nuclear waste might be buried beneath them forever. Faced with a mandate to isolate the waste for 10,000 years, the Department of Energy mapped, analyzed, and assembled its assessment, while the unsuspecting stewards of the sacrificial territory found themselves fighting for their homes, their health, their history, and dignity. Just a terrific documentary film called To Use a Mountain. We're joined today by the director. That would be Casey Carter. Casey, welcome to Cinemophile.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Great to have you here. This is one of those stories that is, to me, has been kind of buried in history or political history. We never talk about nuclear waste anymore. I never hear anyone discuss this, and we continue to produce more and more and more. Now we're up at, 90,000 tons of it, and yet we don't know. I mean, you will get into this. Tell me a little bit about what put you on to doing this particular wonderful documentary film called To Use a Mountain.
Thank you. Yeah, I grew up in Northeast Tennessee, not too far from Oak Ridge National Laboratory, which is one of the original nuclear laboratories from the Manhattan Project days. And it's still a national laboratory currently, and they do much more than nuclear science there, but there's still, it's a big part of the ongoing, U.S. nuclear program. So that was kind of in my backyard growing up in East Tennessee, but I didn't even have such an awareness of it then. Later, many years later, when I was in grad school, I was doing some research on Yucca Mountain, which of course was the site that was ultimately selected, you see in the film, for this geologic repository in southern Nevada. In the course of learning about Yucca Mountain and researching documents on Yucca Mountain, I came across these reports produced by the Department of Energy on the other candidate sites, in addition to Yucca Mountain, which were, part of this kind of set of 9 sites in the early 1980s that the government, they basically said, okay, Department of Energy, look at these places, analyze them, make your determination, and then choose which one will be the site. Looking at these environmental assessment reports that were produced by the DOE, I was just struck by the lack of humanity in these things. I mean, they're like 400, 500 pages long with 100 maps, just tons of tables of statistics, and of course thousands of lines of analytical text. And they're describing these rural areas that you probably never heard of in just excruciating detail in every possible way except for this human dimension. Within those documents, in each one of them, probably on the 3rd page of these reports, there's the same map, and it's the map that also is the recurring map of the United States in the film that shows the 9 candidate sites spread out across the 6 states that we visit in the film. And that, to me, just kind of embodied a story and so many questions. And I wanted to explore those questions and uncover and tell this story about these places and create a portrait and an encounter of each of these places that would serve as a rebuttal to the way of seeing that is put forward in these reports produced by the Department of Energy, which is all about a utilitarian vision and an analytical description. And I wanted to make the film that could put this human story in dialogue with that way of characterizing a place.
Well, I love the way you told the story. In some ways, you could describe it as dispassionate in one sense. You're seeing what you just described. You're seeing pages from these reports. There's no voiceover. It's just the people in the film who are telling their story about their particular circumstances at these different sites. But by doing it the way you did, to me, it really underscores their stories. It kind of really forefronts their story so that you're hearing it. You're not thinking, what was that statistic about how many this, that, and the other? It is about them. And by doing that, the film just picks up this kind of emotional I'll call it gravitas. I don't like to use that word, but it picks up that particular that's emphasis on the humanity of the people who are being impacted by this. So my congratulations to the way you told the story. But I cannot say, I have to say just how desperately important it is that we all don't think of this as a history lesson. This is real time stuff.
That's right. Yeah, and and you get a sense of that in the film, but things are developing in the present beyond the circumstances that we encounter in the film. But even this question of nuclear waste, even this idea of visiting the sites that maybe might have been selected back in the 1980s, which seems like such a sort of historically rooted, hypothetical type conversation, you realize that this is very concrete and this is enduring, and that we're dealing with consequences of these histories and ongoing nuclear programs in the present day, moving from the sites in Louisiana and Mississippi, which were kind of knocked off the list early on, to the sites that still are really contending with the impacts and the ongoing developments of the U.S. nuclear program at the Hanford Nuclear Reservation and at the Nevada test site, Nevada National Security Site now. And so, yeah, we sort of moving through time. This in the film, this feeling that this is engaging with a historical question, but it's an issue that hasn't been resolved, and it's also an issue that continues to evolve in the present day. And now we're dealing with a whole host of new nuclear issues, new nuclear industry and weapons initiatives, and so it's an important time for people to gain an awareness about both the kind of past and present implications of the U.S. nuclear industrial structure.
Yeah, and there's just so many ways to go from here in our conversation. We could talk about the fact that the United States is the largest manufacturer, and I believe at this point, the repository for nuclear weapons, just a few of which could end humanity as we know it. Just a few of them,
Mm.
maybe less than 50 of them would properly or quote unquote could be enough to end the human race. And they're still producing those. We
Yeah,
have nuclear energy that continues to accumulate more waste that we're going to have to deal with. And then there's this kind of madness now that we're talking about because of these data centers. They need power. So now all of a sudden we're talking about little mini nuclear power plants on rivers because that's where they need to have water to be able to run these places. So this is more than relevant. This is today. This is now. And we still do not, and also let's not forget the fact that this stuff is radioactive to human beings, will kill you for the next 10,000 years, I believe is the number. Correct me.
yeah, yeah. 10,000 years is the containment criteria that the Department of Energy set for
There you
the
go.
geologic repository. But some of the byproducts of the high-level nuclear waste remain, quite dangerous for much longer than that, hundreds of thousands of years.
Yeah, there's a couple of elements that
Yeah,
are in the hundreds of thousands of years
right.
of danger. So this could not come along at a better time in terms of just kind of reawakening, because in the 80s, this was a huge issue. This was the subject of much conversation, particularly when we were building more ICBMs to combat the Soviet Union at that time, all kinds of issues. But it's taken a back seat in some ways, not to the people who live in these
Mhm.
parts of the country where we see, but this is something we really need to be talking about. What kind of reaction are you getting? That's, I guess, what I'm trying to get to is what are you hearing from people? It's screened at a number of film festivals, to
Mhm.
use a mountain. It's screening. People, what has the reaction been to people who have seen it?
There are a range of reactions. I mean, some people are frightened, rightfully so, overwhelmed, because if you don't have an awareness of this issue, and if you don't have an awareness of the scope and the impact of the history of U.S. nuclear energy and weapons development across the country, then it is overwhelming the extent of the impact on the land, on the communities. It's really mind-boggling. So people, rightfully feel overwhelmed. But then for folks like yourself who have been involved in this issue for a long time, they see it and they are invigorated. They see all of a sudden all of these anecdotes and circumstances that they've been, holding as part of their story and set of concerns. that have been materialized and visualized in this film that takes us across the country and deals with these issues and shows the power of the people, and also the tragedy of just the impacts of these programs, nuclear weapons, nuclear energy, our lack of a solution for nuclear waste, the enduring threats. Yeah, it's funny, in most screenings, you can't really tell as the film is going on, like how people are engaging with it, because they're just dead silent, just sort of taking it in. But I screened the film for a group in DC last summer, just after the film premiere, called the Alliance for Nuclear Accountability, which is a consortium of organizations across the country that are made up of frontline communities in dealing with nuclear waste and nuclear weapons issues. And, they were like laughing, whispering, chatting, because they knew they had some relationship to every piece of this film. And that was a really amazing experience, because everyone in the audience was immediately connected to what they were seeing on film. And like some remarks in the film that other people would just kind of, gasp at, they're sort of like laughing at or whispering about or like chuckling, because they know this person and they know their attitude. And anyway, it was just a really special thing, and it was very interesting to see the difference in the reception. And it does have a lot to do with the extent to which people are educated on these issues, because it's very overwhelming if you don't know.
From the 80s to now, nuclear industry has just gone kind of down low. For a while there, they were trying to put up a whole bunch of information about how all that stuff was crap. Don't worry about a thing. We've got this covered. And then we go through a couple of major Chernobyl and our own 3 Mile Island, and that was it. And so, but they have never gone away. They have been, as I said, under the radar for a lot of people, but it continues to be something that is a visceral threat. And I also believe that it's a latent issue that if you tell people about what's happening, they will immediately react, because the reaction back then was very strong. And it really stopped a lot of the really crazy shit from happening. It's there still. I think 2 issues right now would be a winner if I was running a political campaign on a state or national level, which I have done. I would, one, talk about nuclear energy, and this is an opportunity to go solar or renewable in a big way. We don't need nuclear. Secondly, I would end oil company subsidies. Nobody talks about the subsidies that these oil companies are pocketing billions of dollars in producing devastation around the world. And so I think this is right there below the surface. I do really believe that to be true. People don't want to hear about this crap anymore when we have all the technology available for renewables. It's very powerful. It really is. And it's quietly powerful, but that's my favorite kind.
Yeah.
Power in terms of this. So so I want to let people know it is opening at John Alpert, God bless John Alpert, at the DC TV Theater in New York City on August 21st. It will be rolling out from there, because we have San Onofre right down the road, which I was telling you about before we got started, where they have huge amounts of waste that they can't take out of the drums. The drums are starting to decay, and they don't know what to do. They literally do not know what to do with it.
This is like the situation in Hanford. There's the shot in the film where the camera drops down into the tank with all the nuclear sludge.
Yeah, that's exactly what's happening at San Onofre.
Yeah.
And you are a few miles from 2 million people. Thank you, Casey. Thank you, Casey Carter. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You have been listening to Cinemaphile with Mike Kaspar, the place where you will hear from the best in independent documentary and foreign filmmakers. Please check out our previous interviews as well as upcoming interviews and special programming by going to cinemaphilepod.com. We are also available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube, searchable under Cinemaphile with Mike Kaspar. Until next time, thank you for listening.